Good evening, and welcome to the second annual Powerhouse Pros Stand-Up Comedy Competition. We're here to laugh and to learn, and we are joined by 5 coaches who have decades of comedy experience. Eric Culverson, George Gilbert, Al Jensen, Darren LaCroix, and Scott Pritchard. And for your listening and laughing pleasure, our 7 contestants: Elliot Chase, Andrea Grossen, Beverly Rideout, Joanne Wang, J.R. Wilson, and Bill Parker. And now I'm pleased to introduce a 3-time district-level contest winner, our MC for tonight's program. Let's welcome distinguished Toastmaster Bill Brown.
Good evening and welcome to the second annual Powerhouse Pros Stand-Up Comedy Competition. My name is Bill Brown and I am excited to be your MC this evening. When John originally approached me, he asked me, "Do you want to be a contestant?" I had to look around me to find out who in the world he was talking to. Then I explained to him, "John, I really don't know anything about stand-up. Although I must admit, many a time, I have been stood up." Hey. Today, we are going to be regaled by 6 contestants. Now, we're just not going to hear from the contestants. The judges, too, will have a part, because after all, this is not just a contest. It is an educational event. And we will be calling up our individual experts to either give a comedy shtick or, in most of the cases, some tips on humor. We are going to start right now with 2 of those. I'm excited to introduce a comedian who performed stand-up comedy every weekend for 5 consecutive years at the Tropicana, Bally's, and Planet Hollywood. And he has opened on the road for Louis Anderson. Tonight, he will be speaking on what bookers look for in a comedian. Let's have a big welcome for Scott Pritchard.
In the world of stand-up comedy, what can you do to increase your chances of getting booked? One thing would be to influence the influencers. John Maxwell, leadership coach guru, it's in his book, but it's applicable in stand-up comedy in regards to getting booked and getting paid. A few short years ago, hanging out with other broke comics, complaining, whining, crying why we couldn't get broke. It occurred to me one day, maybe I should hobnob and network with the bookers. You know, the people that pay the check, write the check, pay the bills, and pay you. Influence the influencers. It's a given if you're going to be doing stand-up comedy, you should be funny. That's almost a given, okay? I have respect for anyone who gets up on stage. Public speaking can be a challenge, but public speaking combined with motivating people to laugh, it's a whole new level. Keep in mind, you're on an island all by yourself. If you're in a band, you've got backup singers, you've got a guitar player, the drummer. If you're having a bad night, someone has your back. Stand-up comedy, you're on an island all by yourself. If you're bombing, everyone knows. Don't ask me how I know. Influence the influencers. Keep it clean. You have an advantage if you keep it clean. Recently, I performed TV3 Las Vegas Rocks variety show. I would not have gotten booked if I was dropping F-bombs. Keep it clean. It's harder to keep it clean, especially in Las Vegas, Saturday night on the strip, late, $30 a ticket, sold out crowd, people are drinking, they're gambling. Casino host might have just saw some guy lose $5,000. Sorry about the $5,000. 2 comedy show tickets. Have a good time. Your job in comedy is to break preoccupation. You've got the headliner, you've got the feature, you've got the MC host. Probably I've been fortunate to do all three. MCing and hosting is the most challenging thing to do because, again, they're drinking. It's late. They're annoyed because they've lost money gambling. Your job is to win them over. Likability is a big deal. That's half the battle if you can be likable. Where do you find your material? For me, it's pretty simple. It goes back to being original. No one can ever steal your material if you simply share your life experience. For some reason, people find it hilarious when I tap into my own personal life, my problems, my struggles. The Greg Wilson, stand-up comedian, headliner for 22 years, told me that there should be an element of truth to what you say. Embellishment, exaggeration, that's all part of humor, but there ultimately should be an element of truth. That's where the funny is, and that's where people can relate. One example would be with me with my weight. Nutrisystem is a scam. They sold me on the idea it's about portion control. I signed up for 4 weeks of service. They sent me 28 days of food. The food lasted 6 days. The real story is, after 22 days, I went to the pantry, the food was gone. But when you write a joke, less is more, clarity is king. If I say 22 days, it's mildly amusing, but 6 days, funnier. Keep it clean, be unique, have a unique take, have a strong opinion, element of truth. I've talked before about 3 keys to doing stand-up comedy. It's about 3 letters, T-B-O, spelled just the way it sounds. T, think funny. B, be funny. It's stand-up comedy. It's not stand-up commentary, stand-up political rant, stand-up comedy. Be funny. O, own it. Again, it goes back to respect for anyone who does public speaking or does stand-up comedy. That's why anyone and everyone who does it has my instant respect. Be funny, think funny, own it, keep it clean, influence the influencers, have fun, tap into your own personal life stories. So again, stand-up comedy, keep it clean, own it, be funny, think funny, influence the influencers, have fun, tap into your own life experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I particularly take to heart the tip that you had there that if you're doing stand-up, you need to be funny. That's why I'm not doing stand-up.
That was funny.
And now we would like to move on to our second expert and his tips. Our next performer opened for comedy legend John Pinette. If you try to call Darren and he doesn't answer, it's probably because he's speaking in Saudi Arabia, France, China, or Cleveland. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome a Toastmasters world champion of public speaking, Darren LaCroix.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, the applause. Scott, well done. Scott gave some great advice. He said, talk about your own personal stories, your own life examples, and, but also don't steal other people's material. But I'm going to steal Scott's because his life is worse than mine. I wrote a new joke. I'm teasing. I'm very much teasing. We were asked to give a tip, and in a very limited time, obviously challenging, but Scott did it, so I'll give it a shot. When I came to Toastmasters, one of the things that I learned from stand-up, because I went from stand-up comedy to Toastmasters, my mentors taught me the most important habit is stage time, stage time, stage time. So when you're at the beginning of your career and you stink, I guess we can't say suck, oops. Thank you for getting that, Ronnie. So glad you came. At the beginning career, when you're trying to get started and you don't have any experience, it's really hard to get stage time. So I sat at my desk. I worked at Bose Corporation, and I started to read the company newsletter about this thing called Toastmasters. I'm like, what's that? I start reading. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Here's a place I could get stage time during the day. Comedy clubs are only open at night. I could fail twice a day. Woohoo! So I came to my very first Toastmasters club. There was maybe 12 people here, and I noticed something very different from the comedy clubs right away. You people are warm, encouraging, and sober. So I immediately joined 4 Toastmaster clubs because I wanted to quadruple my failure rate. Okay? What that was, stepping back now for the tip, what that was is that's actually a comedy formula. I highly recommend the book, Stand Up Comedy, the book by Judy Carter. One of the very first principles that gave me hope is that comedy is actually something that can be learned. So that's called the rule of 3. So warm, encouraging, okay, those are 2 logical things that could be said about the audience. And then Toastmasters, we turn it, we exaggerate the 3rd one, which is sober. So warm, encouraging, first 2 logical, set up the expectation of the 3rd being logical, but that's when you exaggerate it. It's called, Judy Carter calls it big, big, small, or small, small, big. So for example, another example of that could be, I don't want to brag or anything, but I played all the best cities in the world. I played Sydney, Australia. Paris, France would not be funny right now. I just caught myself in the middle of that. Boom! How to kill a joke. So, all right, back up. Sydney, Australia.
Hong Kong. London.
Yeah, but I haven't played there. Sydney, Australia. Kuala Lumpur or Pahrump. Okay, so 2 big ones, minus the Paris tangent we went on. And then 1 small. So the small one, especially if you can make it a local one, whenever you can localize a joke, that the audience in front of you would get that. So first 2, creating the expectation of a 3rd big one, but instead we use a small. So it's a simple formula that helps you, that you can create some humor for your next presentation. So hope you have fun tonight. Thanks, Scott, for my setup. Try the veal.
Thanks, Darren. Thank you, Scott. Let's hear it once again for Darren and Scott. We are about to start our competition, but we are going to have a warm-up act first by someone who is actually funny. Our next speaker grew up in a show business family. His parents were both comics and appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show. He was performing on stage before the age of 10. He is an in-demand speaker and a motivational humorist, and he is one of only 66 Toastmasters accredited speakers worldwide. Let's give a big hand for George Gilbert.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm the opening act because the other 4 judges didn't want to do stand-up tonight, so they said, George, come on. First of all, I want to thank you, Powerhouse Pros. It's been a long time since I've been here. The last time was about 6 months ago, and they said it'd be a cold day before I performed here again. Powerhouse Pros, the pinnacle of show business, I think. Anyway, it's great to be here. As I said, I started performing stand-up at the age of 10 years old, professionally 12 years old. My parents were performing at Disneyland Hotel, and they told the agent that I was part of the act. I wasn't. I was just doing little jokes at Kit Carson's 6th grade center, and next thing I know, they're throwing me in front of 800 people. 800 people at the age of 12. Thousands of dollars of therapy later, I'm okay. Scott was complimenting me earlier about my dress. Last time I was here, Carolyn Pelliter said I was the best dressed Toastmaster. And I'm very proud of that, because I didn't always dress this nice. No. For the longest time, I did not dress this nice. I used to have to wear hand-me-downs. And I hate hand-me-downs. All I have are sisters. Do you know how embarrassing it was to go to the prom and you and your date are both wearing the same dress? Then she got jealous of me because I got more compliments than she did. Now, today we're going to have some comedy here, and a couple of tips about not the comedians, but the audience. The audience, it is important to laugh. Laughter is so good for us. Laughter is so good for us not only physically, but emotionally. In fact, Sigmund Freud once said that 1 out of 4 suffers from mental illness. 1 out of 4. Think about that. Look around you. Do the 3 people sitting next to you look normal? Then maybe you need to laugh more, because laughter reduces stress. That's right, laughter reduces stress. In fact, laughter also can help improve your mental health, as I just said. And long periods of stress can lead to mental illness. Now, I have to admit, before I got here, I was not sure what I was going to talk about, and I didn't want to really talk about mental illness. I didn't think it'd be appropriate, but when I started talking to Greg Bruce over here, John Kinde, Mr. I just hope I'm not too late. So we need to laugh more because it does reduce stress. In fact, when we laugh, we lose that stress, and it's also good for us. Now there's other things about laughter that can do it, but I also want to talk about weight, because I've lost a little bit of weight, and one of the things that I've done every day for the last 6 months is this. Look how thin my fingers are. Anyway, I hope you have a great time. Enjoy the laughter, and don't worry, nothing can be as tough as in front of 800 people at Disneyland Hotel at the age of 12.
Thank you, George. And now, let the contest begin. We will be having our speakers come up, just so that you know, one by one, quasi-Toastmaster contest fashion, although there will be a slight shift because we'll get some feedback at the end, but more on that later. So now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our very first contestant, Elliot Chase.
Hey everyone, I would like to tell you guys the story, whoops, leave that there, of the time that I fell in love with a stripper. So, story happened when I first moved here about 2 years ago, and I was, in a former life, I was a professional poker player, so I was playing at the Aria Casino, and I met a young girl who became infatuated quickly and started saying my name over and over at the table. After she left, I got a call from a friend inviting me to go to a popular strip club. I accepted and I went there. I met some of his new friends, and one of them recognized my name. I had never met this guy before. He had just moved here from Texas. So I asked him how he knew my name, and he said, I was at Aria earlier, and someone was screaming that name out all night. So after that was not the girl, by the way, it was someone else. As he says that, someone comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and I turn over, and I see what in my mind was my future wife. I saw her right there, staring at me. She asked me if I want to get a dance. Before I could think, I say yes, because that's what you say to your future wife. And she led me by the hand. She led me by the hand to a bench, essentially. And on the way, I wasn't really thinking. I was basically imagining the white picket fence, the house, the 2.5 kids, all of that. By the time we sit down, I realize I don't have any cash on me. But I have $100 chips from Aria Casino. I don't know if they accept them at the strip club, so I tell her that I don't have any money. I'm sorry, but I forgot. I don't have any cash on me. She looks at me. She's a little upset, kind of puppy dog eyes a little bit. But then I reach in my pocket and I show her these Aria $100 chips, just black circles basically. And she looks at them, looks up at me, gives me a big smile and says, "You're good to go." So then, sorry. I'm sorry, guys. So then she has me. She can't accept any kind of non-American currency, so we have to go to. Maybe it was her boss. It might have been a bouncer. I don't know. She brought me over to somebody, and they watched me give her the chips, and then we walk back, and then I get a dance from her, and afterwards she leaves, and it felt like I went through a relationship, a marriage, and a divorce, just all in one night. So that was the story of me falling in love with a stripper. Thank you.
Hang on here. What? Elliot, thank you very much. Every one of our speakers is going to be receiving a copy of the book Speaker's Edge, courtesy of Darren LaCroix. This features articles from Patricia Fripp, from Darren, and 3 of the other world champions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Where this contest differs from Toastmaster contests is that each one of our contestants will receive written feedback from our experts. And some of them, if they so deem, will come up here and share a few of their observations with all of us so that we learn. So gentlemen, give you a chance to write. Does anybody want to come up and take the mic? The performers obviously want some mic time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand-up comedy, not easy. Elliot, great job. You've got courage. First time I met with him in the hallway. This is his first time on stage doing stand-up comedy. Here's what I liked. Your conversational tone. You're not speaker man, you're not speaker woman. You're basically having a conversation and connecting with your audience. So great job with the conversational tone. Start there, build it from there. One suggestion, leave your hair alone. It's great, it's perfect. Let it fall wherever it may fall. But you're in the right place. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
George?
Thank you for your presentation tonight. I admire anyone to get up and try stand-up comedy. Couple things I would suggest: be yourself, which you are, so that's good. Wordsmith your jokes, so that your story, so that you can develop some jokes. I think the title of this presentation might have been "When the Chips Are Down" or something, and you could have made a joke about when the chips are down. And so just kind of work on that. You have opportunities in this story for what Darren was calling the three. I can't even think of the name of it now. Rule of three. Because you have so many different opportunities to do those kind of twists in a story like this. So thank you very much. Bill?
Good job, funny man.
Darren?
Hey there, Elliot, well done. I'm just pumped that you came up your first time. That is, give him another round of applause for that. Nice. Couple things I recommend is, one of the things I learned from my mentors is always record yourself. And even if it's just audio, I never met a headliner who never recorded themselves. So just make it a habit, keep doing it, congratulations. And then take the time to actually write it out. Because it's a lot easier when you have words in front of you to wordsmith it. Doesn't mean memorize it, but I really admire the fact that another great positive, you're willing to open up and have that humility and tell us your most embarrassing moments. Congratulations, you're a comedian.
Thank you, Darren. And now, please welcome to the stage our second contestant, Andrea Grossen.
traumatic events in life that cause the most stress, that actually causes bodily harm. One of those is losing a loved one. Another is a natural disaster. The third is moving, believe it or not. Now, you may laugh, but when you're moving and you have to face that, when you look back and you're faced with having to move again, you would give anything to never have to move again. Anything, including losing maybe a distant relative. For instance, my Aunt Clara, I love her dearly. She's a wonderful woman, but she's lived a long and full life, and frankly, she hasn't really contributed anything to society since the Hoover administration, so we can just move on from there. That being said, recently I had to move, and I was gonna be just fine because I was dating this guy. He was a great guy. All right, he was a decent guy. He was a jerk, let's face it, but he had a truck, so I was happy. Now 2 weeks before I'm about to move, he stops calling me. Now, ladies, we all know there are 3 reasons why a man stops calling you. One of them, he's mad at you. Wasn't that? I'm adorable. There's no reason for anyone to be mad at me. 2, he's found somebody else. No, not a chance. 3, he's trying to get out of something. Like moving my precious baby grand piano from my 2-story apartment into a U-Haul. So I call my girlfriend, I say, girl, I need to find a man. She says, oh, you should try Match.com. I said, no, I'm trying to find a man to help me move. I am not pathetic. I am not desperate. I will not get on any of those sites. So a week later, I meet this guy from Match.com. He's perfect. Perfect. All right, this guy, first name, Cameron, right? Occupation, cage fighter. Stage name, The Predator. All right? And here's the kicker. Vehicle, Toyota Tacoma. Got it. So, I invite the Predator into my home and I say, hey, will you help me move? It's the ideal first date. He helps me move. I buy pizza. I never call him again. Like I said, ideal first date. So, some of you might be thinking right now, what are the moral ambiguities associated with being the type of person who catfishes guys to help her move? And I will answer that question. I do have an answer to that question. I would love to answer that question, but I think I'm actually out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we'll give you a minute there to fill out your comment sheets, and then when you're ready, feel free to come on up.
I'll come on up.
Al Jensen.
Thanks, Bill. Andrea, awesome enthusiasm. You gotta like it when the comic comes up and immediately you grab everybody's attention. That was awesome. You demonstrated some phenomenal use of some very basic yet important comedic techniques. Darren talked about the rule of 3. Judy Carter didn't invent it, but she brought it up and brought it to everybody's attention. You utilized the rule of 3 probably 6 or 7 times tonight. That was awesome using that. I loved your exaggeration. For comics, use of exaggeration is a very simple way to get some comedy into your presentation. You used a line that I really liked was, since the Hoover administration. So that was a great, great thing to do. My suggestions to you, stay on the mic. There was a lot of times you were getting over here, and when you work a room, you need to have your voice projected to everybody. They have the microphone set up for a reason. Use it, project your voice to everybody. And let me suggest that you maybe take some training. I would have liked to have heard some voices to your characters. You had a couple of characters in your story, which I loved, but if you could have used a little more voice, that might have been really cool. I could have differentiated when somebody was saying something, so don't just narrate it, act it out by using somebody else's voice. Bill?
Thank you, Al. Does anyone else like a shot? Scott Pritchard. Thank you.
Andrea, great job. I love your confidence. I mean, you're in charge, you took charge, you owned the stage. Loved it. Very comfortable. If you're comfortable up here, we're comfortable listening to you. One suggestion I would say is when she got to the punch, when she got to the funny part, moving was the punch. You said 1, 2, and moving, believe it or not. Leave out, believe it or not, you're stepping on the punch. You want to pause, because everyone was laughing when she said moving. Let them laugh. Silence is your friend. Pause right after you get to that punch. Let them laugh. Don't step on that. And then later on, there was another example where you talked about, and he had a truck. And then bam, you're off to something else, but everyone was laughing when you said truck, which was the punch. So confidence, being comfortable, stage presence, great. Just hold the pause after you say the punch. Thanks.
And Gavin LaCroix.
Thank you, sir. Great advice. Well done. Great advice from those guys. To clarify what Al was talking about, dialogue, Judy calls them act outs. Let's hear the characters talk. It's a great place to add a few more punchlines. The one thing I would say, and by the way, you were recording yourself, right?
Yeah.
Sweet! Go to the head of the class. That's awesome. That's a great habit. The one thing I would say is, at your level, because you're obviously, this isn't your first time, you should be videotaping. Because I'd love to see you see your own body language, because you kind of, as Scott pointed out, you moved away from the mic, so we couldn't hear you, and you kind of were doing this and doing like the model pose, and it just...
I have to pee. No, I'm kidding.
You were warned earlier. Okay. So, well done, very tight content. So, excellent job, well done. Bill?
Thanks, guys. And now, please welcome to the stage our third contestant, Beverly Rideout.
I think most of you would agree with me that the one constant in life is change. My mother, who had just celebrated her 100th birthday, I'm sure she has seen more change than any of us in here. She was born before there were computers, before there were cell phones, even before Al Gore created the internet. But she's trying to keep up with technology. When my mother wants to find out about something, she'll say, "Google it, Bev." And now that she knows how to operate her tablet, don't mess with Mom when she starts playing Candy Crush. Marriage has changed. When my parents were married for over 50 years. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been married for 50 years or so, but not to the same person. And then to a lot of those people who did say, "I do," don't. My mother had 8 children, with 7 girls and 1 boy. And I asked her one day, I said, "Mom, why did you have so many children?" And she said, "Well, Bev, I didn't know how to stop them from coming." Well, guess what, Mom? We knew how to stop them from coming. And Mom, that's why you only have 3 grandchildren. And by the way, Mom, one of them was adopted. My dad was so embarrassed when people would ask him, "So John, how many kids you got? All those girls you got? How many grandbabies you got?" And he would say, 3, and change the subject real quick. You know, there's been a lot of change in the world too, and a lot of it's pretty scary. You know, there are wars going on, there are terrorist bombers, and now we've got a loudmouth billionaire running for president. You know, we're going to be in big trouble if he wins this election. because nobody will have a job. Come on, you're all fired. Well, actually, I take that back. The only ones whose job is really secure are hairdressers. 'Cause they're going to be working so hard to keep up with the demand for the new presidential hairdo. And as for me, yeah, I've changed too. There was a time a few gray hairs would really freak me out, but now I'm just glad to have hair. And there was a time I wanted breast implants. Now I'm trying to convince Medicare to give me a hip transplant. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Gentlemen, when you finish, feel free to step on up to the mic. Eric Culberson.
All right, first thing I'd like to say is congratulations, Bev, because I seen your comedy a couple of years ago, and you've transitioned from telling stories to telling jokes. And that's one of the most important things that we do as comics, is you have to get to the punchline. So you have to write it out. All the things that the panel has been saying all along, you have to go up there with a sense of mind of where you expect laughter and work toward that as quickly as possible. So congratulations on doing that. One recommendation to you is that you covered a lot of different topics. So if you could just work on your transitions a little bit. So you're talking about one thing and then you want to move into a slightly different riff or a different set. Just give us, maybe just an attitude or a gesture, something that just lets us know you're transitioning or segueing to a different subject at that time. All right. That way we're not listening to that next gesture going, oh, she changed gears. Yeah. But again, congratulations. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Anyone else? George?
Thank you. Beverly, great job. We enjoyed you. You had confidence up here, and Eric was right. You did have jokes tonight, and I liked that. I thought that was good. You set your joke up. You did maybe a little rehearsing a little bit more so that they were smoother, just as he was talking about the transitions, also the punchlines on it. But other than that, good job. Good use of humor. I wasn't sure where you were going when you were talking about politics and starting out. That might be scary, but you did it in an easy way to accept the political joke too. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now, please welcome to the stage our fourth contestant, Joanne Wong.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joanne, and I am a programmer. I have many friends working at big tech companies such as Google and Microsoft. I don't know how they got in. I cannot. So this guy from Microsoft was interviewing me, and he goes, "How many gas stations are there in the United States?" I was like, "What? Does Microsoft have gas stations? Why don't you just go search online?" So I said, "Can I Google?" He goes, "At Microsoft, we don't use Google. We have our own search engine, which is Bing." Whoops. Then this recruiter from Google called me. She wanted to set up a video chat. Sweet. So I asked, "What's your Skype? Let me add you." She goes, "At Google, we don't use Skype. Skype is owned by Microsoft. We use Google Hangout." Damn! How can I remember all this? It's impossible. Maybe I should apply for a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. At least I know they don't serve hamburgers. So I visit my friends at the Bay Area a lot. Not because I miss them, but because their companies serve free food. Both lunch and dinner, weekdays and weekends. Guess what? I ate for free at Google for 3 months. After 3 months, I got tired of the food at Google. So one day, me and my friends, we went to these fancy restaurants. We take some takeout, went back to a Google cafe, and started eating. It's lunchtime. Everyone was passing by our table. They saw what's on our table. They went into the food area and came out very disappointed. Finally, a guy came up and asked, "Excuse me, I was trying to find what you are eating. I searched the whole cafe. I couldn't find it. Where did you guys get it?" We said, "We got the last ones." Okay, time's up. Gotta go. By the way, I finally got a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. Al Jensen.
Yes, indeed. You didn't forget my name. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Joanne. Great. Where did she go? Oh, there she is. Great storytelling. I love it when I hear a story. You weaved humor into the story. Although I must admit, when you came up here, I was a little confused. I thought perhaps you were speaking directly to the camera. I didn't really see you address the majority of the audience, which was a little bit disappointing. The biggest thing that I appreciated in your setup here was your setup and your callback to the Kentucky Fried Chicken. That is a tremendous talent to be able to do that. You have to understand what callbacks are all about. You set us up in the middle of your set. At the end, you had that callback. That was a clear signal that you were done. You called us back to that, got a great laugh, said, "That's it, I'm out of here." Very good job. Bill?
Thank you. And Darren LaCroix.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Well done. Nice job. I really like the structure. You could tell that you really put the time and wrote it out, which was very good. So my biggest feedback for you is at the beginning, something that's attention getting. If you start off as a Toastmaster, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters guest, and whenever you just say, "Ladies and gentlemen," to grab our attention sooner, it's almost like you have 5 or 10 seconds to just get us, and we're setting our expectation. If you start off with something, it's almost like a trajectory. So if you start off with something not as engaging right away, I just think you're missing out on a deeper connection with your audience. So as well as you did on the structure, spend some time just getting that one opening line. Make sense?
And now, please welcome our fifth contestant to the stage, J.R. Wilson.
I'm a writer. No, that's not the punchline. A lot of people seem to think it is because most people, frankly, especially parents, don't understand what it is we do, much less why anybody pays us to do it. Unfortunately, some of those people are publishers. As the managing director of one of the world's largest and most prestigious publishing houses of magazines and books once told me, anybody can write. He was an accountant. I refrained from telling him that any second grader can add and subtract. Writers come in all shapes and sizes. You've got novelists, you've got nonfiction book writers, but the majority, in my experience at least, are reporters for newspapers and magazines. Unfortunately, a few years ago, the publishing world decided to fire all of those and hire them back as freelancers because it was a lot cheaper. Made all the accountants happy. We also took another hit. In recent public opinion polls, the news media ranks beneath Congress. Believe me, you do not want to be beneath Congress. I think perhaps the best explanation I've ever heard of a writer's plight is about a writer who died and was immediately greeted by a guide of indeterminate origin who told her, because you were a freelance writer your entire life, neither God nor Satan paid any attention to you whatsoever. So they've decided you can determine where you want to spend eternity, heaven or hell. Well, being a curious type, she said, well, let's start with hell. She immediately found herself looking out over a vast expanse of writers, chained to their desks, fingers bloody from pounding on keyboards, while shadowy figures lashed at them with whips covered with thorns. I don't think this is where I want to be, she said. Can we take a look at heaven now? And the image changed imperceptibly. She was still looking at rows and rows of writers chained to their desks, bloody fingers, whips, thorns. She said, this is ridiculous. Heaven and hell are horribly identical. To which her guide responded, oh, not at all. In heaven, your work gets published. Not that it really matters, because to paraphrase General MacArthur, old writers never die. We just ask for extended deadlines and then go to the bar.
Thank you, JR. We will wait for our experts to make some comments and then decide that they're going to mosey to the front of the room. Well, JR, they're writing an awful lot. I don't know whether that's good or bad. Scott Pritchard.
JR, I thought you connected extremely well. You looked at everybody. You didn't leave anyone out. You seemed very comfortable up here. Very well spoken. You speak very well. My one suggestion would be, and I don't know, but it sounded like it was not an original story. It sounded like when you start talking about heaven and hell and writers and publishers, I hope it was original, because stand-up comedy has to be original. You also must know your audience. If you're at a convention with writers or publishers, that might fly even if it's not original, but more times than not, you really want to concentrate on being original, okay? But a great job. Again, connected well. You're very well spoken. Good job.
Darren LaCroix.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm going to take what he asked, or what he said, and actually ask you, was that original?
Which part?
Any of it?
Yeah.
All of it?
Semi.
Okay, semi I take as a no. So what you have to understand, though, is if you're doing unoriginal material, that'll work at Toastmasters, that'll work at places where you'll get $50 a set, but that's never going to fly in stand-up comedy, because comedians know other comedians. Comedy, and you guys can back me up on this, everybody in the club knows everybody else's material. So it's funny here, but I just encourage you that when you're using other people's material, even if you turn it enough to kind of make us question, my little radar went off as well, Scott, though I couldn't put my finger on it because it was very well written and very tight, but so tight that I was like, well, and then the heaven and hell thing. So great delivery, but be aware that you were doing this a lot. And notice that the voice changes even though you can't. So if you're not going to hold the mic, which here we don't want you to, you've got to be aware that if you're going to turn your head, you still need to keep the distance from the microphone. Very important. So I will tell you that if you want to be a $5,000 speaker, you'll never do it stealing other people's material. Or I'm not saying you stole it, but even being inspired that much by it. Does that make sense? You've just.
It was all completely original except for the last part.
Okay, but here's the key.
Heaven and hell, and that was.
If one piece is not original, we think most of it must have been stolen. Okay, is that agreed?
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
So you've got to be really careful with that. Any one line or two lines would be like, I don't think that was his. Unfortunately, it's going to take all the rest of your original material and put a negative feeling on it. So get rid of the unoriginal, work more on the original because your original was good. So keep it up.
And now, please welcome to the stage our sixth contestant, Bill Parker.
It's nice to be here at Powerhouse Pros. I just have one question. When does the poetry start? Do you guys have a nice holiday? You know, mine, same old, same old. Things just don't change. In fact, the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. Now, if that isn't a good enough source for you, I'm going to go directly to world champion of public speaking, Darren LaCroix. Mr. Don't change your speech, just find a new audience. I got news for you, Darren. If you start the senior center circuit speaking, you won't even have to change the audience. Darren, you know, I'm picking on you and I realize that, but all the other guys are bigger than me. But truly, there is nothing new under the sun. And I should know, been married 33 years. And if you're not going to applaud for me, at least applaud for my wife. And right next to Sherry is my mother-in-law, Georgia. 87 years old, and this woman is a saint. For years, she saved and scrimped to provide the very best that she possibly could for her daughter, Sherry. And look who she ended up with. But there's nothing new under the sun, and just today, I picked up the newspaper and found it. Went to politics. Do you know the governor of California is Jerry Brown? Got a Bush running for president. And we got a Clinton trying to cover up a scandal. Excuse me just a second. It's an email from Hillary. Doesn't want me to do any more jokes about her. And I'm not. Because in what world would anyone named Bill say no to Hillary? We see the same thing in sports. There's always some legend that's retiring. There's always somebody going back into rehab or out of rehab. And there's always a scandal. There's always a cheating scandal. I tell you, it's enough to deflate my enthusiasm about football. But fashion is the next thing. And you know, we've got platform shoes, skinny jeans, and I heard denim shirts are making a comeback. That's my time.
Thank you, Bill. And Darren LaCroix quickly comes to the mic to defend his honor.
Don't go far. Don't go far. I just want to say, brilliant topic.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else want to try to top that? Scott Pritchard.
Thank you, Bill. I love Bill's humor. It's always clever. He's very witty, play on words. I love the deflate football reference. I thought that was very good. In studying humor and having mentors and friends, a friend of mine once told me, no, wait, I take that back. It was you. You told me, and it's great advice, when you're doing stand-up comedy, never laugh at your own material. As funny as you are, try not to laugh at your own material. I love the improv because when you mentioned the fact that you and your lovely wife have been married for 33 years, no one applauded. I love the improv. At least give it up for Sherry, if not me. I thought that was very good. You were in the moment. Great job.
And anyone else before we wrap it up here? We're going to give our experts an opportunity to finish their ballots. I felt that. Our next performer is a busy speaker and technical trainer who has often appeared on the stand-up comedy stage. An in-demand speaker, he is on the road more than he's home. I'm sorry. He's an active professional member of the National Speakers Association, and he is past president of the NSA Las Vegas chapter. Let's welcome Eric Culverson.
All right, so can we give it up one more time for all our contestants this evening? See, now that is what we would call a cheap applause, okay? Like, that's me walking up here. You know, I haven't done anything to even merit an applause myself, but what do? I just ask for it on behalf of the other people. You know, that's like a way of me just sort of inserting myself into the flow here. But my tip for you is pretty basic. It has to do with attitude. And a lot of you did a really good job of this evening, but here's what I want to emphasize for you. When you are doing comedy, as Scott said, you have to own it. And what that means is that you really got to believe in what you're saying. Even if it doesn't work, doesn't matter. There's no such thing as sympathetic laughter. Because when people are out there and they're actually watching you, they want you to entertain them. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but you have to believe in your own material. So you have to have enough confidence to actually deliver it like you know it's going to be funny. And then if it's not, you don't get the reaction, so be it. You know, do something else like Bill did, or just move on, because it will happen to you from time to time. But you have to have the confidence. And that comes primarily from practice. It comes from writing out your material, from wordsmithing it, as they've already noted, getting it down to the least possible words between your premise and your punchline. And then once you do that, if you can add a tag is one of your best friends in comedy, because a tag is where you've already done the setup, you've already done your basic premise, you've already hit your first punch word or your punch phrase. But rather than starting that process all over again, if you can write a tag that allows you to move those laughs closer together, and that's ultimately your objective as a comic. You need to have your audience laughing and responding as much as possible. You don't have time to go all the way back to the start, set up a whole nother joke, a whole nother premise, a whole nother punchline. So when you're writing, when you get to that punchline, think about, okay, great, how can I tag off of this? Okay. That's my tip. And again, great job to all of you. Thank you.
And now, our fifth expert. We will call him to the stage. Our next speaker is a comedy magician, a convention speaker, and a popular radio personality. In addition to a busy speaking schedule, he also presents workshops on humor titled Funny Just Got Easier. Last year, he was dean of the NSA Las Vegas Speakers Academy. Let's welcome a talented speaker and a very funny guy, Al Jensen.
Let's hear it for Bill one more time. Eric, you're absolutely right. One more time for Bill. Hey, this is easy. I love it. You guys up on current events, popular culture, stuff like that? Who reads People magazine? Raise your hand. Okay, this joke isn't going to go anywhere. People magazine recently named David Beckham as the sexiest man alive. I know exactly what you're thinking. I wasn't slighted, however. I finished, no, thank you, Patricia. I wasn't slighted, I finished 173rd, right behind Bernie Sanders. Hey, but I finished ahead of Chris Christie. Hey, that's not bad. Now, do you like quotes? Like famous people quotes? I love famous people quotes. Raise your hand if you like famous people quotes. Even if you don't, just raise your hand. Show me you're alive out there. All right. You can't believe everything you read on the internet. Who said that? Abe Lincoln. You're absolutely right. Abe Lincoln also has another fantastic quote that I just love. He says, all men are not created equal. No, he says all men are created equal, doesn't he? Yeah, all men are created equal. Well, obviously, he's never showered at the gym that I go to. Give you a couple of minutes to think about that. No, you see, all men are not created equal, and all comics are not created equal, and all jokes are not created equal. You may have heard that you want to have 3 or 4 laughs per minute. Raise your hand if you've heard that. As a comic, as a comedic speaker, a humorous speaker, you want to have 3 or 4 laughs per minute. Well, I'm here to suggest that that may or probably not is the case. Probably not the case at all. You see, getting a quick laugh, a little chuckle here or there, doing it 3 or 4 times a minute, that kind of sucks. But if you can be like a Jack Benny, who could milk a joke for 30, 40, 50 seconds of laughter with nothing but his facial expression and his body language. Who else could do that? Robin Williams. He could get minutes of laughter without saying a particular word. I liked Eric's suggestion that you use tags. Because you spend so much time with the premise and doing the setup, you want to get to the punchline. A tag allows you to add another punchline. But I'm going to suggest, instead of counting laughs per minute, when you record yourself, go back and count the positive audience response that you get. It's called a PAR score. There's a comedian down in San Diego, Steve Roy, who has a website. Refer to it here. It's called, ComedyEvaluatorPro.com. Jot that down, ComedyEvaluatorPro.com. His suggestion is that you count the number of seconds of laughter you get per minute. I don't care if you tell 1 or 2 jokes. If you get 25, 30, 35, 40 seconds of laughter, you have done your job. Headliners typically score a 30, or 30% of the time on stage is filled with positive audience response. It could be laughter, it could be applause, it could be groaning, it could be standing ovation, whatever the case might be. But if you are a headliner, you are going to be expected to fill at least 30% of the time with audience laughter. You go through and watch the comedy greats. You apply this Comedy Evaluator Pro, and you will find that the comedy greats get 30, 35, 40% of the time up there in laughter. Let's face it, the audience doesn't really care what you have to say. They want to laugh. They want to enjoy it. So fill your time with as much positive audience response as you possibly can. You do that by videotaping yourself, by audio taping yourself, by going and getting this software from Comedy Evaluator Pro. Essentially, you listen back to your presentation. When the audience starts to laugh, you push a button. When they're done laughing, you push another button. They start to laugh again, you push a button. At the end, it gives you a score, minute by minute by minute. You can then compare your minutes. You know where you have to work. You know, in my second minute tonight, I spent 48 seconds talking. I only got 12 seconds of audience laughter. You know that's where you need to work. Because comedy takes a lot of work. Comedy can be easy, but you got to understand what it takes. You do that by videotaping yourself, reviewing yourself, and then doing a better job next time. Darren LaCroix hit the nail on the head. It's all about stage time, stage time, stage time. But Patricia Fripp says, are you repeating the same mistakes over and over again? If you don't videotape yourself, if you don't evaluate yourself, if you don't do a better job next time, it's a waste of time. Don't even bother getting up here. Thank you all very much. Have a great night. Back to Bill.
Thank you, Al. Are the results ready? While John is coming up here, I do want to make a couple of comments there. Fantastic. Oddly enough, I have an envelope here that says the results. But I would like to make a couple of comments from what our experts have said. First of all, I believe it was Scott who told Elliot, be careful of playing with your hair. I wish I'd heard that a number of years ago. I don't know if you noticed it there, but Darren was over there when he's looking, he puts his eyeglasses up on his head. I wish I was an artist. I really wanted to go over there and paint some eyeballs up there where his eyeglasses were.
And the comedy's over, Bill.
Okay. It never started with me, Darren. Never started with me. And Bill Parker was certainly, has some guts telling his mother-in-law's age in public. That's something that's going to be up on YouTube. Nice knowing you, Bill. Actually, I know what Darren's telling me. I'm going to be in a champ camp with Darren later this week, so I know he will get even. But I'll tell you what, let me pull something out here.
No, don't do it, Bill. It's not that kind of show.
That is good comedy. We have got for the, by the way, we are going to announce only the first place winner. That's because the other 5 all tied for second place. Our winner will get this handy-dandy trophy. This is Powerhouse Pros December 2015 first place stand-up comedy contest. And from Darren LaCroix, Humor and Hope and Laugh and Let Go. Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the stage, the winner of the 2nd annual Powerhouse Pros stand-up comedy competition, Andrea Grossen. Congratulations, there is your trophy, there are the...
Photo op. Photo op.
I'm trying to get taller.
There you go. All right. Good.
Thank you.